Hi everyone, welcome back to the Rangers reviews. Post-match briefing, Rangers 1, Ajax 2 in Rangers' second pre-season friendly outing. Chris Jack was there. We're going to talk through the game, what materialised from it. But Chris, we'll start with the news that's just kind of broken. Nico Raskin was forced off in the first half. Now we're going to get into talking about the football, but I believe he has left the stadium in a protective moon boot. You'd imagine that it'll be an injury as everywhere. They'll need to assess it tomorrow and put an exact timeline on it. But a moon boot is never a good first impression, is it? It was a really bad challenge that forced Raskin off. Rangers are going to have to cross their fingers that that's nothing serious, because it's the last thing they need, and it's not really an area of the pitch where they have a lot of strength and depth at the moment.
No, in terms of things to come from pre-season friendlies, you're looking at fitness, you're looking at examples of shape, you're looking at some relationships being formed on the pitch. You're not looking for players to pick up injuries, and certainly not to believe in the ground in a boot. I was heading back up here from the press room to come and do the video back up in the press box, which is slightly quieter than it was earlier on, thankfully.
Yeah.
But no, I was heading back up here and saw Nico going out the door and heading back towards the Rangers team bus, as you say, wearing that boot and with a crutch. So it's not the news that Rangers would want. Now, of course, I think it's almost standard procedure these days. As soon as you pick up an injury like that, it's a sensible thing to do. You put the ice on it, you put the protective boot on it, you try and do everything you can to try and manage the situation. And as soon as they can, Nico obviously had to come off just 5 minutes before the end of the first half. So fingers crossed, it's not a bad one. I think he's someone we spoke quite a wee bit about towards the end of last season. I think we're all looking forward to seeing what this second full season will bring. It's a big campaign for him. And speaking to one of the guys earlier on, actually, who's saying, look, this week in training, he's been flying, he's been looking really good, and then something like that goes and happens. It's not something that you can account for. It's not a case of there's clearly been injury problems at Rangers over the last couple of seasons. There have been changes in that side of it. The manager's tried to address that situation. Things like that, you can't account for that. It's just a football injury. It happens, unfortunately. Players do pick up these knocks, and hopefully it's not a bad one, because it would certainly put a downer, a real downer on what has otherwise been an encouraging trip for Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not obviously the headline will be another injury for Rangers, etc., but it's not. It wasn't like a muscle injury, an impact injury. It was a really poor tackle for a pre-season game. So we'll try and seek some clarification over the coming days as to the severity of that one. The game overall, Chris, a summary for people if they did not watch it. I thought it was all right. Hard to take too much from these pre-season games. Ajax are a bit ahead of Rangers in terms of their schedule. I believe they've been back for a week longer. They have European qualification games at the end of July. I guess the main takeaway from a Rangers point of view, before we talk about some of the positives, Chris, was that it was poor goals to concede in that first half, wasn't it? The main takeaways for me is you still see how far away, with players like Hamza Igamani and others still to arrive, you see how far away Rangers squad is from being ready for the first game of the season, as it probably always would be at this stage of pre-season, but tensions are heightened because of the nature of the summer. But there was also a few worrying mistakes. Really switched off badly, Rangers, didn't they, for the first goal, and Jack Butland with an uncharacteristic error for the second. Some bright performances. I thought the energy was actually lifted when a lot of substitutions were made. But what did you make of it overall, again, without reading too much into what is essentially a kickabout and an attempt to get minutes and legs, to use a horrible football cliche?
I think the second one, if I look back down at that goal, I think that the second one, you write that off and you just forget all about it. That's not a mistake that Jack Butland makes very often, thankfully. He will be disappointed with it, I'm sure. He will look at it, he'll also try and address it, but I think we can almost write that one off. That's not a Jack Butland style mistake. I thought the save he made from the header from Akpom earlier on in the game was really top drawn and getting up and getting that header away. He was required early on. I didn't think Rangers started that well. Ajax could have been ahead before they were ahead.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Josh, the first goal, yes, it's only pre-season. Yes, you might not be fully switched on, but it's a bit...
And Chris, it's the type of goal, sorry to butt in, but it's the type of goal that you think of being switched off a free kick, I feel like that people get more irked by that because we've seen it so often. I'm thinking back to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst days, and if you've not conceded those goals in the past, then it's probably not that much of an issue in pre-season. But it's parallels are always going to be drawn, aren't they? And it wasn't a great one to concede.
No, it wasn't almost a calamity of errors. Though obviously lose the free kick, the back four then don't get into position. Butland comes out, makes the challenge, and then is it too busy, I think, appealing to the referee to say that he didn't pull the Ajax player down. Well, another Ajax player also slots it in from a fairly tight angle. Not a good goal. A good goal for Rangers to concede. We spoke to the manager about it post match, and he was not overly enamoured with how the whole situation unfolded. But I actually thought from there were some decent performances from Rangers. I thought Conor Barron again. I was impressed with him when I saw him on Wednesday in the closed door game. I thought he came in and looked really good again. He certainly puts himself about. He's got bundles of energy, and he seems to be the type of guy that just has slotted into that Rangers midfield and slotted into this Rangers squad with relative ease, which is really encouraging to see, because you don't have a lot of time now. We need as many players to come in and hit the ground running as possible. I think it's safe to say that Conor Barron has done that. Comment there from Francis, have to agree. Liam Kelly, Ajax could have won by more in the end. I think he was really pleased with his 45 minutes. Now, we also spoke to him on the big interviews on the website this morning. The video is out as well. He's very honest about why he came back to the club and very aware of his position within the pecking order here. He knows if Jack Butland is fit, Jack Butland plays. Not to say that he'll never lose his place through form, but as it stands, Butland has enough credit in the bank, more than enough to start the season, obviously, as Rangers number one. All Liam can do is come in, perform, do his bit, enjoy it, and I think he would have certainly enjoyed that 45. And I thought they made a number of good saves. I think if Rangers were lost by more, it would have been harsh. As you say, Ajax definitely ahead of where we are in terms of preparations with the European game coming up. So you always have to take that into account in these games at this stage of the season. It's very, very hard to judge the respective levels. But I think Rangers have got out of these two games, Nico Raskin's injury aside. I think they've got out of them what they were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, Martin's point here is important. Ajax had a bad season last season, but they're still a side who are above Rangers financially and in terms of quality. That meant, I think, really until the second half, we actually didn't see that much of Rangers on the ball. I'm just looking at the notes. The first half seems a while ago because it wasn't a game you'd rush to watch back, Chris. But I thought Lawrence had some decent moments, obviously scored the goal. From which Rangers would briefly equalise the game. Goldson struggled at points up against Akpom. For me, let's get on to some of the players and how they performed. I tweeted out at some point, I can't remember, but it was something praising Mohamed Diomande because he's just a good player, isn't he? And it's easier said than done to sign more players like Diomande. And I'm not saying this on the basis of his performance today, but just overall. He's 22, Chris, but he very much represents the part of the new spine. He is going to be that aspect in the middle of the pitch for Rangers that will play the majority of games. And I think that the more quality you put around him, the less hopefully he'll have to do, because he does seem to have quite a burden of responsibility at the moment to get the ball forward. We saw him play higher up in the midfield. We saw him drop a little bit deeper as well after Nico Raskin came off. I thought Alex Lowry came off the bench and was bright, some really nice touches. It's obviously never been a question of quality with Alex Lowry, so it'll be intriguing to see what happens over the next few months in that situation. Chefty didn't see again too much of the ball. I thought you saw his pace in moments, though, in particular up the left flank with Rabbi Matondo. Anyone else? We've touched on Liam Kelly. Anyone else performance-wise stand out to you as kind of better than the rest?
No, not in terms of standing out. So I think that you mentioned the main ones there, and I think that ties into the conversation we had after Wednesday night. You're not looking for excellent team performances at this stage. You're looking for guys obviously to pick up their match minutes, to go through their schedules, to get up to the fitness and the sharpness levels. That's something that the manager touched on post-match. He's looking for as you're then going to the Man United game, obviously Birmingham and Union Berlin. During these ones, we're then perhaps looking for team performances. We're looking for a wee bit more, but right now it's minutes, it's fitness, it's sharpness, and I think it's encouraging that over both games, I don't think Nazemdi has come in and really been absolutely stinking and been terrible. But I think there has been enough encouragement there from Rangers. Yes, we know the squad still needs options. We know the squad still needs quality. We know players still have to leave. But I think people have to remember and be very aware of the stage of the season that we're in and where Rangers are at present.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in. We will try to get to as many as possible. Chris McFarlane says the team is weak. That's 2 pre-season games in a row we failed to win, and we'll lose to Man United, making it 3 in a row. Higher quality attacking players needed as soon as possible. Comment here saying some of the same issues remain at centre back, and if we keep going forward with Dessers, we won't win anything. CJ says some good saves from Kelly. Got to agree with that. Chris as well saying Barron and Kelly played well. Lawrence too. Yeah, I thought Connor Barron was good when we came on. Didn't mention him on my roundup there. A couple of points here, Chris, on the same theme. RFC 72 effectively saying that when Rangers young players came on, they looked a lot more energetic, and Rangers Easy OK also saying what a difference with the young boys coming in and adding some energy to the press. I certainly thought that watching it on the TV. You were there, but it felt like, look, we've seen this Clement system, and as pre-season it materializes, we're going to have more of a look at what the system exactly is, because he came in pre-season. What's changed? Sorry, came in mid-season. What's changed in pre-season? What are some of the weaknesses? Because it does seem he's going to be very rigid in that 4-2-3-1. I think if you're playing that system, you need kind of legs at number 9 and number 10. And if you're playing someone like Dessers and Lawrence, while Dessers can be quite clever in how he presses, you've not got much natural pace in there. Did you kind of share the sentiment that when a lot of substitutions were made towards the end of the game, it felt like Rangers had more legs to get up and press Ajax, who obviously would have tired somewhat by that point in the game as well?
Again, it can be difficult, especially in games at this stage. Also, the opposition make changes that kind of disrupts their flow, and how does that then impact on Rangers? So do Rangers look slightly better because Ajax look slightly worse, if you like? But I think there was definitely an upturn in Rangers. When you mentioned the Lowry earlier on, it's good to see McCausland being a big part of the squad in terms of one of the younger boys. Also Cole McKinnon. We've still to see Bailey Rice come into this group as well. I know he's someone that the manager Neil Coppin rate really highly. That could be a factor given that Nico is now potentially out as well. So there's I think there has to be a pathway for these players. You have to, if you are on this pre-season trip, if you get a chance to be here, and you're one of the younger players who's not established, you have to make the most of the chance. You need to give everything you can in training, and when you get these match minutes, you have to make the most of them, because if you don't, you will quickly fall down the pecking order, because as we've discussed, and as we know, the manager will sign, there will be more players to come into this group.
Yeah.
So if you're not making an impression now, you're probably not going to, because someone else will come in, and you're not then going to get ahead of them when money and time has been put into bringing the other guys into the club. So I think it's pleasing to see that the younger players are making that impression. Whether they can over the next couple of months rather than just the next couple of weeks, that's going to be a more telling factor, because there will be other players coming into this squad. And I think, yes, there has been encouraging signs in a couple of the from the game so far, but I don't think anyone is under any illusions about how much work still has to be done on the. Players have to be moved on. The squad has to be trimmed. The money within that tied up in those players has to be reinvested, and Rangers do still need a number of reinforcements. I don't think anyone, least alone the manager Neil Coppin, they are fully aware of that. The manager addressed that when we spoke to us the other day there. He knows that further players have to come in. He knows that the squad needs more. It needs more quality. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just clicking your fingers and making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, no one's, and this is, I guess, where the frustration will come into seeing it in the comments. That starting 11, that squad, no one, I don't think anyone would argue that a lot more quality is not required there, and a lot more work has to be done before Rangers play Hearts in a few weeks' time, especially in the final third. I mean, the defence may be more dependent on who goes out in terms of who comes in, but the quality that is needed and just depth in the final third, Chris, is pretty apparent. But equally, on the basis of performance, you're not going to criticise much because it's pre-season. So a little bit, it depends how much you can read into it, I guess, on how you're feeling about the overall picture. Maka says, good to see Danilo back, and that was his first performance and appearance in over 6 months. You obviously spoke to him exclusively for the Rangers review at the tail end of last week. Chris, that's going to be on the website this week. A few people saying he looked like he bulked up a bit as well, which is maybe a byproduct of, I'm sure, spending a lot of time in the gym while he's not been able to do his running at a number of points throughout the injury. Good to see him back, and maybe just give us, I know you spoke to Derek, a bit of a taster of what that journey has been like for him and what people can expect when they hear from him on the Rangers review next week.
I think when you saw him going through the warm up and going through his warm up before he came on and then getting back on the park, you had to feel pleased for him, because he has been through. Anyone that has that kind of injury, it's not just the physical aspect of it. It's you have to go through the surgery and then go through the surgery rehab. It's almost the mental side of it, because you are facing a long time out of the game, a long time away from the squad, a long time away from doing what you love best, and ultimately he wants to score goals, win games, and win medals, and that was taken away from him, unfortunately. So I think he'll just be really pleased that he's back. Again, people have to be patient with him. He's had 15 minutes or 10 minutes. I think he got this afternoon. He will be built up. There will be more to come over the next couple of weeks. But personally, I having sat down and spoken to him at length the other day there, just really pleased to see him back. I've always found him a good guy to deal with. He's very upbeat, even in the darker moments that he's clearly been through. You can imagine him having a positive attitude, because he mentioned this in the piece. When those days when there wasn't progress, when he didn't feel that he had even a marginal gain, he almost beat himself up because he just wanted to keep going forward, and people had to explain to him that's not always the case with these injuries. And this type of thing, it's a slog. It's not not to borrow the manager's phrase, it's a marathon, not a sprint. No, when it comes to this type of injury. So hopefully people enjoy the interview we've got next week, as he touches on a number of other factors. His family support network, what the fans can expect. He's got a message for the Rangers fans in terms of the support that they've given him over the last 7 months, but also after he came into the club as well. So I think the interview that you had on the site with his former manager last season, also republished that last week, that almost summed Danilo up. There was this excitement when he came in. Like, you're signing a Brazilian number 9. What's not to like? What's not to get excited about? It didn't work out for him last season, but hopefully now we can certainly start to see the best of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we'll leave it there. Chris, thank you for all your great coverage over the past number of days. There's going to be a lot more coming from Philippe Clement and others on the Rangers review over the next few days, so keep an eye out on the YouTube channel and the website as well. But until then, thanks for joining us. We'll be back with the morning briefing on Monday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and